stay here the entire time.
Okay,
My wife's on the way down.
Books are in the break room upstairs.
okay, okay,
Both your classes.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, my wife's on the way down from Temecula. We're bringing our dog to the vet ER because I guess he's like coughing as if like he's like got something stuck in his throat.
Oh, no. How you doing tonight? Good? All right. Any, relevant questions, complaints? No, is that relevant? Nothing? Anybody wants to debate last night?
Yeah, it was bad for both people.
Bad for both?
Mhm.
Why?
Like, both of them lied about several things, both of them took quotes out of context.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of them really answered the question. And then Kamala kept throwing out little baits for Trump, and he took every single one of them. And then at one point, he wasn't even debating Kamala, he was debating the two commentators. So it was just, the whole thing was just bad. It was a disgrace to America.
Yeah, pretty bad.
So that's what you
Yeah, all right.
get us all clean, been wrong in the wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys watch the debate? No?
The highlights.
You said what?
Highlights.
Does I like? Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, definitely better than the last one, but different opponent, I agree. Huh?
Taylor Swift, I'll endorse Kamala.
Who?
Taylor Swift,
Oh, yeah.
When did that happen?
rapping debate.
Right after the debate, yeah.
She posted rapping debate.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. It was all right, I agree. They both had some things, and I think it was just, President Trump, had stuck to the issues, he'd be fine, but he just can't help himself.
He should have never made that dog comment.
It's
He should have
ridiculous.
never made that
It's
comment.
It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Okay, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's much offense to
'Cause
it.
I'm like central, like I'm not really Republican or Democrat. Like if RFK would have kept going, I would have voted for him. But like I'm more old school Democrat, I would say,
Mhm.
because I like the social like programs, like I know people need it,
Right.
especially poor people, but like Kamala, she's too radical for me.
Mhm.
But then Trump is he's too much.
Yeah, he's a lot. Yeah, it's interesting. They both did have some issues. I think Kamala needs to separate herself from Joe Biden a little more. But that's gonna take a while because she has experience, and I know she's smart. Just her policies, gonna change a little bit. I don't know what to say about Donald Trump. Just yeah, it's tough. You gotta stick to the points.
But he does have good foreign policy. That's the thing with Trump. He has really good foreign policy.
Yeah, I guess to a certain degree. I mean, it's good if you believe in nationalism, right? And every country should believe in nationalism to a certain degree. Yeah, to a
We're
certain
kind of
degree.
past that point.
Yeah, we're kind of past that point where we don't necessarily have to believe in nationalism because of our stature globally. So, the United States has always been more of a country that is there capable to assist other countries to help develop and opportunities and that kind of thing. We don't have to worry about world dominance and stuff like that, make America great again. Nothing's wrong with America. America's fine. We have some issues, but so do other nations. Nothing unusual, and some of the stuff he did say was kind of off pocket, and some of the stuff she said was off pocket too. But the dog eating thing really struck a chord with me because my family's Haitian, and I have a lot of relatives, all over the place, and we definitely do not eat dogs. Okay, I don't care how poor my family is in Haiti, there's no dog
Yeah,
eating.
that was the first time I heard about the dog comments. But I've seen videos
I heard
of
him.
the Venezuelans going and grabbing the ducks out of the local ponds. I've seen the video of that.
That's
But the
different.
dog thing,
Yeah.
I don't know about the dog.
Ducks out of the pond, but that's a little different to me. And it's still wrong.
It's a duck, yeah.
It's a duck, and we eat duck here, right? Where other countries, we eat cow here. Other countries don't eat cow, right? So they see it as, oh my goodness, they coming to grab the cows. right? It's the same thing. They come to grab the dogs, like they,
I don't think anyone can stop it. I don't even think Chinese eat dogs anymore.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Probably in the mountain, rural areas, they place where they're starving. They probably eat horses in Russia. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but this is a very good um lesson in ethics and morality and values, right? And looking at the different moral compasses of each. Come on in. Of each. There you go. What's up? I ain't seen you forever. You know, hiding?
Everything good, how are you?
Everything good?
Yeah.
Good. Where's Ali?
In Jordan,
In Jordan.
Yes.
What's he doing in Jordan?
take a vacation before 2 months
Working.
and then have money problem in with your family.
Okay. All right. Okay.
We come back after 1 week.
Okay. All right. Good. I'll get him when he comes back. But it's an interesting look at different moral compasses and what each candidate values is important, right? Because that's really what the fight is at this point in the United States. The economy, yeah, okay, but at the core of everything is the abortion fight, right? The immigration fight, right? Which all really stem from our understanding and our value system about helping others and treating others a certain way. But, at the end of the day, there's a number of lies, both told on both sides. But when you look at the lies, is it kind of the means justify the ends justify the means type thing, right? Does Donald Trump necessarily lie all the time because he has a long range plan in mind, right? Because he feels like in his heart of heart that he's doing the right thing, right? Or is he just selfish and more concerned about himself, right? And is Kamala making decisions based on the fact that she believes in one thing, but is saying something else because she wants to get the votes, right? And so, as a politician, you can't make everyone happy. That's part of politics, right? But if you get the majority of folks to agree with you, then you're probably going to win. But this is definitely a battle of, ethical considerations. And then when you look at uh, Donald Trump's background, especially the past 6 months to a year, where he just, got convicted of certain crimes, right? And he's still denying that that he lost the election. And then you got all his circle of people are going to prison, right? And still, the point that people are willing to lie about certain things because they feel that the ends, right, would justify their actions. Okay? And so it's a really interesting ethical dilemma that they face in the sense that they can be comfortable and sleep at night knowing that they're making the decision on both sides, Donald too, and Donald Trump, and all their cohorts, all right? Because at the end of the day, yes, President Trump or Vice President Kamala, one of them will be president, but really their impact is manifested through their staff, through their proxies, right? The people that work for them. They're not the ones out there doing all the stuff, right? Other people are doing the stuff. Other people have to make decisions, but the culture that's set is set by the president, right? If the culture is that we can skirt the ethical line in order to achieve our goals, and that's okay, then that's what is going to happen. But if the culture is, look, is this, would we like this outcome? Sure. Is it the right thing to do? Probably not. Maybe we shouldn't do it, right? And so you have this battle about, even with the Israel, Hamas, Gaza, Palestinian thing, right? There's an ethical issue here, right? And unfortunately, the United States has a certain role to play in it, but and this is just my take on it, right? When I look at it from a Palestinian perspective, or just in general, external perspective, I don't necessarily think Netanyahu has the best intentions, right? I think he has ulterior motives and he's worried about his survival. Hence, his decision making is very much about himself, right? And so, because of that, other people are made to suffer the decision, and things could probably be done by now if he wasn't worried about his political career, right? So again, going back to the ethical decision making that CEOs, right, have to deal with, not on this same level, depending on the industry, but they have to deal with stuff like this too, all the time. And as we become more globalized, those decisions that companies make have more of an impact, right? Because there's very few companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, right? Those companies are one of one, maybe one of two, right? And so their impact and their decision making, as far as business goes, is crucial because that has an impact and influence on so many other things in the world, right? From natural resources, the job market, to just the ability for a country to develop, based on its creating a new income stream or economic structure that's viable, right? All those things come into play. So, when it comes down to ethical decision making, we have a lot of things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in the corporate environment, that really rely on our personal decision making, our personal values and morals and ethics. Okay, and so those things kind of guide us in our decision making. All right. So we're gonna watch a quick video. We'll have two videos, but we're gonna watch one right now. And this video is a kind of a recap of a study they did. And so a lot of times you'll be involved in a study and you won't know it. Okay, especially when it deals with ethics, values, and that kind of thing. And they don't want to tell people that because they don't want to tell people that they're involved in research, because people act differently once they find out that they're involved in research, that they're looking for a particular, they're not looking for a particular answer, but people think we're looking for a particular answer, right? And we're not. As researchers, you are objective, and whatever the answer is, that's what you go off of. But people don't think that way when they're part of a research study, and they know that's why we have placebo groups, that's why we have control groups, we have, experimental groups, so that people don't necessarily know which group they belong to, because they tend to act differently when they find out that they're part of a study. Let me get out of here. Actually, there it is. Okay, let's get this thing going. All right. So, what everybody think about the video?
It makes sense.
Make sense? Anybody else? What do you guys think? Hmm. Okay. Anything else?
Just see one problem with it, like, if they would have did it to people randomly, I think it would have been a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing it to employees of businesses. And even though you might not be thinking it at the time, subconsciously, you're thinking every action I do right now in this uniform is gonna reflect the business.
Okay.
So I think since it's like giving it to bank tellers and stuff, they have an obligation to represent that business in a good light. Even though you might not think that,
Right.
where if you just found a wallet on the ground out in town, most people I would assume would just take the money and throw the wallet away.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. So, all good points and all valid and, all definitely reasons, as to why it turned out the way it did. But the one thing I think they didn't mention was the fact that, I think some people may look at the dilemma and they'll weigh the consequences of both, right? And say, if I take this $100, and I get caught, right? What am I gonna lose? Is that worth this $100? Right? Forget about personal, values and all that stuff. Hey, come on in, you're doing good.
So,
All right. Forget about personal values, right? It's more or less like, is this $100 worth the squeeze? Is it worth the juice? I just say, right? The squeeze worth the juice. And I think that a lot of people will look at it and go, yes, it's $100. I could probably get away with it, but if there's an off chance that I get caught, I would more likely be fired, right? It's not necessarily a point of trying to be honest. It's just that picking my poison, right? This poison is less poisonous, so I'm gonna go with this one, right? And in addition to, saving my job possibly, I also feel kind of good, right? In doing that, right? I didn't hurt anybody, and maybe somebody will eventually come and get it, right? But then, what if nobody comes to claim it, right? Then what happens? It gets sold, right? That's what totally happens to lost and found stuff, right? The airport and hotels. It goes to this auction house and they basically auction the stuff off. Okay? It's kind of what happened, right? But again, going back to, that dilemma is more of a personal decision, right? Because nobody's looking, and even if someone was, right? Because the person that bought the wallet in could have easily kept it, right? They could have just decided, I'm going to keep this $100 or whatever and toss it, and no big deal. But they did the honest thing or did the right thing by whatever values they have, and they came in and turned it in, and then now it's up to the hotel person to figure out, okay, uh, is it, what am I gonna do with this? All right. And I do agree with you that I think it's different um outside of the workplace, right? When you don't have the workplace constraints kind of hovering over you. But I also think it depends on, kind of where you're at also, right? I can fit the scenario or compare it to living in New York as living compared to living here. Right? I would joke with my friends like, you lose your wallet here, in San Diego and California for the most part, someone will find you, all right? They'll locate you, they'll probably put an extra 20 in there, and then give it back to you. The same situation in New York, they will find you, they will take the money in a while, then they'll find you and rob you even more. Okay? They'll take everything you got in your house, help you, your car, okay? So it's very dependent on kind of like the norms for that area, for that particular environment, right? And as to how people behave, right? As we talked about last week, there is some code of ethics among thieves, right? Even in prison, there's a code of ethics. If you're watching, then you probably not keeping track of this stuff, right? There's a particular case on this gang, the YSL gang. I think they're out of Atlanta. They have some Chicago ties, right? Real convoluted, a lot of egos, right? But they're killing each other. Internally, externally, killing each other. But as you watch the case and the main, what you would call it, not witness, but main person for the prosecution, he's telling on certain things, but there's other things he's keeping close hold, like he's not talking about, right? Because there's a code of ethics they have, right? He's snitching, but not snitching on real things. It's still considered snitching, but he has a code to where, look, I can't tell you about certain things, right? I'm just because if I tell you, then I have to bring somebody else into it, and we don't do that in the streets, right? And so there's a code of ethics and there's a code of value even within a criminal entity. All right, the mob that we talked about, they have their own codes, code of omerta, and oath, whatever it's called, to not talk about what goes on in the organization, right? But as we saw, if you kept up with stuff like that with Sammy the Bull and some of these other mob guys, once it turned out not to be beneficial for them, right? They would snitch. Okay. there was no value, there was no benefit in them keeping their mouth shut, or if they felt like they were betrayed, which is most of the time with the gangs, right? They'll snitch, right? They were trying to kill me. They're gonna, they were making money, but when it comes time to do a murder or do certain things, they call me, but when it's time to split the money, they don't call me, right? And so the ethics and the moral compass kind of changes based on the circumstances, right? So those folks don't have a reliable, steady, ethical, uh, way of doing things. What? What window? What window? Like this? I don't understand what it wants me to do.
That's on Zoom, right?
Yeah, I think it's the computer. See, the thing about technology, the technology is great, but when you don't understand it, why something is doing something, it's just annoying. I don't know why it's doing it. Hmm. I don't know what exactly it was going to do. All right, let's just leave it there because that seems to be working just fine. All right. So if we look at, ethical frameworks, right? Nothing more than an attempt to provide systematic answers to fundamental ethical questions, right? How should human beings live their lives? When we look at ethics, we look at, values, we look at, morals. Like I said last week, it's very relative, right, to our society. Yes, we have a certain codes or certain rules that we abide by, yes, but even those we get from someplace else, right? The Ten Commandments, what's in the Quran, what's in the Torah, what's in, all these other, scriptures and other books that are considered, holy and reverent, right? We get our rules from there, right? And then internally, we have our own kind of value system, right? But that's usually formed or influenced by our environment, right? Where we came from, how our parents raised us. That's why we have different folks going in different directions. Some folks are in prison. We're here. Some folks are homeless. We're here. It really boils down to the decision making, in doing the right thing in the sense that you feel like you're doing the right thing for yourself, right? Because there's a lot of folks out there who live off the grid and who believe in, conspiracy theories. They believe in, radiation is bad for you. If you don't grow your own food, it's terrible. If you don't hunt your own food, it's terrible. You gotta make your own water. You have to survive on your own, survivalist, right? Which is the old way of living, right? Because we didn't have all the conveniences back then, right? And feel that technology and some of the newer conveniences that we have are impacting our ethics, right? When in all actuality, what do you guys think impacts your ethical decision making? Hmm? For yourself, it doesn't have to be, but for you guys, individually, what impacts your ethical decision making? Say that again. No, just the things that you kind of let influence your decisions when it comes to ethical dilemmas or ethical questions. That what motivates you or drives you to make a decision one way or the other?
Bias.
Bias? What do you mean?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know how to word it. I know what I'm thinking, I don't know how to word it.
Oh, it impacts others.
Okay. Yeah.
My position is like breaking on myself or others who can alter how I perceive like make moves.
Okay. Okay. So you're concerned with others and their welfare, their well-being, right? Okay. Anybody else? Hmm? Gotta be some ethical decision making that goes on. Hmm? Anything? No? Not the pursuit of goods and services, not the pursuit of a financial monetary gains, benefit, no? Aside from worrying about other people, right? Most people will make the decision based on what's gonna benefit them, right? And then our society is based on, money, right? We don't barter anymore, or that kind of thing. And most people are chasing these tangible things, right? Which drive them to make decisions, right? What drives an employee to say, I'm gonna embezzle $8 million from the company, all right? What? Because that's how I can get to buy a house, I can look rich, have fancy cars, I can go to all the fancy parties to do what? Hang out with a bunch of people that think I have money because I want their approval, right? So what they're really getting after, right, is really not, at the end of the day, is really not important. Okay? But they make these ethical decisions based on the benefit they're gonna get from whatever, with no regard for how it's gonna affect other people, right? Because that $8 million came from someplace, right? More than likely, revenue that people, produced, and he or she siphoned the money and didn't think about, oh, how is this going to affect the company? If the company takes an $10 million loss, are they going to have to lay some people off? Are they going to have to, cut some projects off? Are they going to have to, make some radical changes in which to recoup this money, right? What other actions did this person take in order to, you know, do the deception, right? What else is going on that they did that they had no regard for anyone else except for themselves, right? They were not looking out for the common good, okay? And so when you talk about ethics and different approaches to ethics, right? Part of it is considering how do my actions impact the greater good, right? And do I make decisions based on the fact that, yeah, it may not necessarily be the most moral, ethical decision, but at the end of the day, it serves the greater good. Okay, just like we talked about last week with the whole, domestic violence thing, right? Wife kills husband, husband's been beating on her. She goes to court. Was it right for her to shoot and kill the husband? No, but the jury is probably gonna let her go. Okay, because at the end of the day, she was somewhat justified in her behavior, right? Although unethical, although immoral, although illegal, right? She's justified in her actions. And so because of that, we're gonna give her a pass on that, right? In this society. But that may not be the case, right? Think about 300, 400, 500 years ago, right? As slaves, right? African American slaves or African slaves being held in bondage, getting beat, killed, treated like property, right? If they had killed one of their masters, there was no justification enough that would save them from being killed, right? So the ethical, moral value systems of the people back then was a little different, right? And so those personal decisions that they made, those ethical decisions that they made, right, was really to benefit them because at the end of the day, slavery is about commerce. Okay, slavery is about free labor. Right, just the fact that hey, I can have this person work, pick cotton, do whatever I want, and I don't have to pay them. They're mine. I can keep the money, right, in my pocket. And the way that it was ethical was through religion, right? Through the Bible, right? They use the Bible to, do a lot of things. Scare off the Native Americans to get rid of them, right? Even in Palestine and Israel, right? The Holy Land, right? Israel, Jewish people, Israelis believe that it's their land, they're chosen people, right? And the Palestinians are like, nah, yeah, we were here first. We left because of, XYZ. We came back and we deserve to be part of the system, right? But the ethics around it are driving in a different direction, where we have this huge war where people are fighting and dying for no reason, all right? It's all about the ethics. It's all about ethical decision making, personal ethical decision making. Right? So we ponder about how should human beings live their lives, right? Ethics can be understood as practically examining this decision and thinking about the answers to the question as to why, all right? Why do we do or decide in the way that we decide, right? And then we talked about the benefits and all that kind of other stuff. But to go back to the video we just watched and what Emeka said is really poignant about caring about other people. Because inherently most of us are concerned about other people. We don't want to hurt other people, even if it's going to benefit us in some way. Most of us are, want to make sure nobody gets hurt. I still want to get what I want to get, but if it means that somebody is going to take a loss in a detrimental way, I'm probably not going to do it, right? That's the average person. You have the other people that don't think that way, okay, which is fine, okay? Why matters because without offering reason, one is giving an opinion, all right? Why matters because superficial agreement can mask underlying disagreement, all right? The why is probably the most important thing because we try to figure out the human nature, okay? Why one person can make a decision on one particular topic and another person goes the opposite way, all right? And just thinks of it in a different light, all right? And again, that goes to the argument of nature versus nurture. All right? Everybody's familiar with that particular argument, right? Are leaders made or are they born? All right? Same thing. Is there someone that's born inherently evil or inherently with a bad set of ethics? Right? Because when you're a child, right, and most people don't remember their childhood. They don't remember that. They remember specific times, but they don't remember their thoughts per se. Right? Some people do, but most people don't. Unless somebody here remembers thoughts. Anybody remember what they were thinking about when they were 2 or 3? Exactly, right? You don't think about those things, right? Because it's just not, you don't have the mental capacity to tell yourself, hey, remember this. Okay? It just doesn't happen. And so because of that, we have to think about, aside from the environment, right? Is this person born this way where they are ethically deprived, right? Where their moral compass is already compromised based on our standards. Right? Because they could be coming from a place where, and it goes a little deeper into, philosophy and all this other stuff, but really, why are we here for, right? What's our purpose in life, right? Where did we come from? That kind of thing, right? And maybe you can assume, in a movie plot or whatever, that we come from a distant planet where, everybody's got, these telepathic powers. It's like Superman, right? They came from Krypton, whatever the case may be, right? Everybody there was good, except for the 4, evil people that they put in a little time capsule thing and it broke, right? But everybody was good, right? So imagine you coming from an environment like that, all right? And you come to Earth, where everybody has so-called free will, all right? And so now it's up to you to decide how you're going to behave, right? But the why is probably more important, right? How did we get to this point to where your ethical standards are the way they are, right? Why would you behave in this way? Did you get, taken advantage of by someone, all right? Did you have an experience that altered how you behave, right? I know for us that have been deployed and have seen combat, that's changed a lot of your perspective on things, right? for me personally, did after deploying and seeing combat, and even growing up in New York, nothing, unless someone's dying, nothing is that important to me. Okay? Money can be made, lost, made again, right? There's nothing so critical, even relationship, there's nothing so critical that you need to, behave in a certain way or take certain action, unless you're dying, right? And you're trying to sustain your life, right? And even then, it's just your turn, okay? It's just your turn. Dying is such a random thing, right? It's just your turn. All right. Many people in cultures attempt to answer why in religious terms, but religion differs from culture to culture, right? So again, if we go back to, it being normative and relative to where you're at, right? The values in the ethics in one place is different based on the different type of governance they have, right? If you're theocratic in nature, the ethics are different. Okay, whereas if you are autocratic or you're democratic or republic, you have a different set of ethics and different set of things that you're willing to do. Here, you can't go around killing people or, an eye for an eye or tooth for tooth, right? It doesn't work that way, right? It happens, but it doesn't work that way. Whereas in other countries, that's the way they operate. You stole something, gotta take your arm. Okay, and that's acceptable. Everybody, oh, what happened to your arm? Oh, you're a thief, huh? Yeah, okay, well, we're good with that. Okay, we just keep it moving, right? And so the why is important. Philosophical ethics provide justifications applicable to all people regardless of their religious starting points. We do have a certain framework where, uh, we agree to come to consensus as a society that we know, hey, we don't want these things to happen, right? Thou shalt not murder, or murder in general is not acceptable, right? But there's still provisions for it, right? When the context calls for it, right? Such as, for Muslims or those practicing Islam, jihad, right? That is justified killing, right? In the sense of, hey, it's in the name of God or name of Allah, and we're justified to kill people, right? Same thing here, right? When we had Christianity, in the name of God, we can kill people or manifest destiny. We can kill you because God said this land is our land, and we need to take it from you. And if you don't want to give it up, we're going to kill you for it, right? And we're going to sleep just fine at night, right? And so it really is, we come to a consensus of certain things, but at the same time, we have these rules or these exceptions to behave in an unethical way and break those rules when it serves our purposes, right? Ethics not comprised of a single principle or framework, all right? So the first thing that we want to kind of talk about is utilitarianism, all right? And utilitarianism is probably the most relevant and most common frame of mind, right, that we have in our society. And again, it goes back to what Mecca said about the greater good, right? Caring about what goes on or what happens to the other person, right? And so when you have utilitarianism, I'm really worried about, okay, what's happening to everyone else, right? Are the actions being taken, are they going to benefit you or are they going to benefit everyone? If they're just going to benefit you, then I got a problem. But if what you're doing is going to benefit the greater good, the majority of the people, then okay, no problem. Okay. Principle-based framework really just kind of goes on the principles of as we said as a society, right? Human rights. Okay. So this is why we have a big problem with human trafficking. This is why we have a problem with slavery. This is why we have a problem with, just demeaning disadvantaged groups, right? Mentally challenged, physically challenged people, right? Because we have these principles, right? And so when you live on a principle-based framework, you're worried about how do things get treated. And this, it's not even about human rights, it's also about the rights of any living thing, right? You got animal rights activists. This is their thing. Principle-based framework. Abortion is based in principle-based framework. Okay? What is it that we're doing as far as respecting the human rights, all right? At what point does a embryo become a fetus? At what point do we consider something alive? Right? I saw something interesting the other day, and it was in a an abortion thing, right? On left side there were two fetuses, all right? And then the caption said, um, which which fetus do you think should be aborted? Something to that effect, right? And everybody picked their thing, and then you look down, and then you see one fetus is a pig fetus, the other was a dog. Not human at all. Okay? And if you really looked at the picture, you could tell one of them had a tail, like a little tail, but it was hard to tell. It could have been something else, right? But it was interesting because now it's not a human. Is your opinion different? Is your thoughts different because it's a pig, right? Is a dog, do you value that less? Or is it more of like, hey, it's a principle. That's a living thing. And so because it's a living thing, we should not abort it at all. We shouldn't kill it. Right? But we do kill, right, animals to eat, right? To survive, right? Because that's what we think, right? That's what has been passed down over time, right? But no one really knows where that originated from, the eating of animals, right? Aside from the religious aspect of sacrificial lambs and sacrificial goats and sacrificial cows, but even still, doesn't mean that you have to eat it, right? You can sacrifice it without eating it, all right? So nobody really knows where that eating part came or who decided like, oh, we should eat it too, all right? For sustenance, because we can eat plants and the plant stuff that grow, that are animals, right? And then we have the virtue ethics, okay? Tells us to consider moral character of individuals and how various character traits can contribute to or obstruct a happy and meaningful human life, right? This is where it gets to our personalities, right? Our personal mindset on things, right? What we're willing or not willing to do, right, for whatever reason, okay? Am I going to grade your paper objectively, right? Maybe you're in my class and everything I say, you gotta debate it, or you always question me in class, in front of the class, and now I get this bias, right? And I go, oh, it's Nathan's paper, he's always messing with me in class, right? It's a great paper, but guess what? I'm gonna give him a B because he's always messing with me, right? It's wrong, okay? Those are real ethical issues that professors go through, right? Those are decisions I make every day to be objective. All right. Granted, nobody here harasses me or anything like that, and I want you to debate me, right? I want you to challenge me. I want you to tell me what you're thinking and like, hey, let's have a discussion here. But that's me, right? There's other people they don't take too kindly to that, all right? And so in order to kind of fix you or teach you a lesson, I'm gonna get you someplace else, okay? And so the virtues that I have, right? My moral compass guides me even in your grading, right? Because I can easily just go, I can pick something out and say, yeah, I grade you on that. Took a point here. I didn't like the title. I didn't like the font. Too much spacing here, right? You start thinking like, oh, these are just excuses out the case. Like that paper is the same thing. It doesn't look like how come that person didn't get a B, right? Well, that person doesn't harass me in class either. All right. And so this helps me to make my decisions, right? This decides how I behave. Okay. Yeah, Warren Buffett, the old wise one, okay? And this one is a good one because, especially as when you're younger, peer pressure is no joke, okay? And so, depending on who you hang with, right, your decisions in life are gonna be influenced by that, right? There's a lot of people in prison, a lot of people in different aspects of their life, that they didn't necessarily make a conscious decision to do. They just got caught up in the moment, or they were trying to impress their friends, or just trying to feel included in the group, and so they did what they did. And then it turned out to be not the best thing for them, or sometimes it turned out to be okay, right? But at the same time, they may feel bad about it, right? At a colleague of mine, he worked for a sports agent, and they had signed this big deal with one of the Chargers and other stuff. And so the the other agent said, "Look, we can make some extra money off of this deal. Put this in the contract, and I will cut you $1 million check, and no one will know." Okay, and he did it. He got $1 million check, put the little thing in the contract. He obligated the player to things that the player did not want, but he knew that he could slip it in there. And eventually, once the player found out that they had to do it, they would do it, not thinking anything of it, right? And he took the $1 million, right? 6 months down the road, they get caught. Okay. And I asked him, I said, "Why'd you do it?" All right. And he's like, "I really did it because my boss kind of made me do it because it was more money for him. I didn't really want to mess with it, but if I didn't go along with him, he couldn't do it. We both had to be in it. All three of us had to kind of be in it, right? We had to have, consensus among us three. So, but I really didn't want to do it because I was a junior guy. I didn't know any better. I was just kind of, I thought this was the way it went, and he gave the money back because he never spent it because he felt so bad about it. He just kind of put it away. And then they caught him, gave it back, and they let him go. They didn't charge him or anything. They didn't prosecute him or anything. They let him go, right? And so his ethics and the people that he was hanging around, right, drove his decision making and compromised his ethics because he normally would not do that. He's Mormon, got 4 or 5 kids, great guy, right, amazing man, and he made this one mistake, right, which really he wasn't. That wasn't his real thing. Okay. All right. Utilitarianism, also called consequentialist approach to ethics and policy, okay? Because we are concerned about the consequences at the end of the day when we talk about utilitarianism, right? We're worried about what's going to happen to everyone else if certain actions occur, right? Everyone's worried about, who's going to be the next president, right? Because it's going to have an impact on so many other things, right? And if people decide that electing Donald Trump is the best thing to do for the greater good, then that's what's going to happen, right? Because when you look at Donald Trump as a candidate, just in an abstract way, that is not presidential material, right? When you look at Kamala, she has her own deficiencies also, but she's different, right? But she's different in the sense that people will look at her and go, "We don't want her to be the president." And because of that, we're looking out for the greater good. So we will cheat in order to keep her out of the office because we're worried about the consequences of which she would become president, what would happen to our way of life, right? And a lot of industries really take this on board. Cryptocurrency, oil industry, right? Because oil is fighting all the green folks, right? The green folks are like, "Hey, we need clean energy, we need this and that." Where the oil folks are like, "We need to make oil, right? We need to pump oil out." And I just found out yesterday that America is the #1 oil producing country in the last 6 months to a year. We've been producing the most oil out of any country. And I was like, huh, interesting, right? So again, what are the consequences, right? What's the outcome at the end of the day of our actions? And if I behave poorly or badly, is that in the best interest of the greater good, right? Even think about the attempted assassination of President Trump, right? What do you think was going through that person's head of any assassination? Reagan, Lincoln, who else? Who's been somewhat assassinated? JFK, excuse me, the biggest one, right? What do you think goes through that person's head? What do you think is going through that whole group of people that planned, those assassinations? What? Don't miss? Yeah, definitely don't miss. Right? What else?
Or like the after effects of what could happen to them or the community, things like that.
Yep. Okay.
I don't even think they care about that stuff. I think they're so brainwashed into their side of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you definitely see it like with Trump supporters, like those guys and girls, they are deep in those conspiracies.
Yeah.
They believe wholeheartedly. My mom did.
Okay.
I can tell you, she pours ivermectin on her skin every time she thinks
Really?
she's getting sick.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's far and straight.
All right. So when you think about, right, assassinations, right, and why you would assassinate someone for different political views, it's really a concern about the greater good, right? If you talk to each one or the ones that they've interviewed and had a chance to really have a good deep analysis, they all say, I did it because that that person was gonna make a decision that was not gonna be beneficial to the greater good, in my opinion, right? JFK specifically, Lincoln too, right? Lincoln and JFK was predominantly because of what?
It was like it had something to do with like discrimination, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat,
Kennedy?
right? Yeah. So with Lincoln and Kennedy, it's all about just giving rights and freedoms to African Americans, right? Lincoln signed Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, right? Which the South didn't like because, again, you're taking away my labor, you are disrupting my way of life, right? Kennedy was going to sign the Civil Rights Act of 1963, okay? That was no bueno with a lot of society because we were still kind of going through the Jim Crow and all segregation, all this other stuff, right? They didn't want that stuff to happen, right? Because there's a diminishing of power, there's a loss of power, right? Which is really at the core of what we're fighting, right? We have a majority group who's used to being in charge, who's used to being at the apex, and is slowly watching their decline, right? But not realizing, right? It's not necessarily just their decline that they're watching, or maybe they do realize it, right? But individually, they're looking at their decline. But what is the real decline here? What is the real decline that they're worried about? The ones that are really like the strategists, the big thinkers. What are they really? What is their thought as to what is declining here? As far as America goes, the influence and control, right? Our global impact is diminishing, right? Our global dominance is diminishing. Make America great again. You guys know where that came from, right? Anybody know where that came from? Make America great again? It's not an original thought. Ronald Reagan is the one that came up with Make America Great Again. That's where Donald Trump took it from. Okay? So at that point in time, Ronald Reagan thought that our society was diminishing. The values, the family core, you know, he felt like we were just kind of going down this tube of more, you know, Eastern European liberal, you know, kind of, you know, do what you want, sort of, you know, people were, you know, back in the 80s, it was a little different than it is now, but that was kind of like that point in certain cities where, you know, people were okay with saying they were gay. It was so, you know, people were okay with having friends outside of their race and telling people that, like, hey, yes, I hang out with black people, I hang out with white people, I hang out, you know, people were okay with that. Okay, dressing a certain way, drugs, and just the pursuit of money. Capitalism was at its highest right there, and there was a moral decline in our society that Reagan felt was taking place, right? But at this point in time, the decline is is in America itself, right? And our stature within the global structure. And we are losing that, right? And that is what people like Donald Trump, Bannon, you know, some of these other guys, that's what they're worried about, is that our dominance is going to start to fall off. But the everyday person, right, um, is more worried about their individual identities being compromised and going down, right? And so, okay, Nathan, I'm gonna just, because you're the only white male in here, okay? All right, but I love Nathan. Nathan's great, right? It doesn't matter to me, right? But and Nathan's open-minded. Nathan's different, right? Nathan been, you know, been in the military, seen, work with other groups of people, right? It doesn't bother him. He's fine.
No, I'm married to a Korean, so.
Right. So yeah, it doesn't matter, right? Right. But there are people that don't see it that way. They see a declining of that particular demographic, and they're not used to that because they used to being at the top. And so the declining internally is that. Externally, on a bigger level, is the United States going down, right? At the same time. And so that's what the fight is really about, right? And trying to figure out, ethically speaking, what action do we need to take in order to rectify this, right? Even if they are unethical, at the end of the day, is it going to benefit the majority of the people, right? And when we say majority, we have to also keep that in mind, is what is the majority? Okay, what is the majority in an abstract sense, and what is the majority in a relative sense? Right. So the majority in the abstract sense is Caucasian, right?
Not for long, yeah.
Not for
But
long.
yeah,
Not for long. Right. But in a relative sense, the majority is white Caucasian males. They're the ones that are scared. Okay. Not you, Nathan, but okay. They're the ones that are scared. In America, anyway. Because they see that things are becoming more diverse. We got globalization. It's a good and bad thing, right? Because more access to different markets, but at the same time, I have to deal with different people, and I have to let them in if I want to do business, right? I just can't do business with you and then keep you on the outskirts, take your money, but don't give you access to what's going on here. Doesn't work that way.
I think a better example is England, because the white people from England, the English,
Mhm.
they really don't like it when race is intertwined.
No.
And that includes even like the economy, like
Mhm.
working together, they
Yeah.
don't like that at all.
Right. But that's to their credit, right? Um, they were kind of the first ones to really embrace diversity, right? They let everyone come, Africans, Middle Easterns, right? But as what happens with most societies and most places that are diverse, is that the people that come from their homeland, they want to have a part of their culture where they're at. Okay? You can do that in the United States because we're very, heterogeneous, right? And we allow for freedom of speech. We allow for freedom of religion and the practice of your different customs and cultures. And we have mosques and temples and churches and synagogues and all this other stuff, right? But that's not the way it works in other countries, right? And so because of that, they're seeing this backlash because now the Middle Eastern folks, the Muslim folks that are in Europe, right, specifically in England, in London and surrounding cities, right, they want the community to represent them, right? They want the community to look like them and to represent some of their culture and what they like and they do, right? And it's natural, right? But at the same time, if you're coming from another place and you come into a new country, you have to assimilate to the country you're going to, right? And it's interesting, the um, the prime minister, the president of Sweden. Anybody know who she is? Young lady. Um, she's like, I love immigration, right? But if you come here to Sweden, guess what? You need to assimilate the Swedish culture. You cannot come and try to create friction by imparting your customs and cultures that you can practice freely, but you can't try to force them on others, right? You can't try to amend our culture, right? Same way you have respect for your culture, we have respect for our culture. And we would never come to your country and try to impose our culture on yours, right? So all these things go back to the greater good, right? And the consequences that occur from the decision making from the leadership, from the people, right? And an aspect of, okay, is it really better for the good? I mean, is it better for the greater good, right? Or is it just better for me? All right. So, free market is decidedly utilitarian, absolutely, okay. How to achieve the goal of maximizing the overall good? Two answers to, especially relevant to business and ethics, okay. Claiming that free and competitive markets are the best means for attaining the goal, okay. Policy experts in predicting human nature, human action are familiar with the specifics of how society works and they therefore are in a position to determine which policy will maximize overall good, okay. If you look at the types of economies that support utilitarianism, they tend to be free market, right? Capitalism, right? Because at the end of the day, all these companies, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Adobe, whatever company it is, right? They really are trying to do what's best for the greater good while making a dollar, right? And then sometimes that comes into conflict with their goal of making money and their goal of looking out for the greater good, right? And this is a question, a dilemma, a thing that we discuss in AI a lot, the ethics of AI, right? Just because we have a certain technology and capability does not mean that we should use it. There are certain things in AI that they don't put out that we have that we know would be detrimental to our society, right? Because AI can do a lot of things, right? And it's kind of like the genie out of the bottle, sort of, right? At this point right now, I personally, and I have a master's in AI and machine learning. I understand it decently enough. I don't trust pictures, videos, or sound unless I took the picture, unless I took the video, and unless I recorded the sound. Okay? Because at this moment right now, within 10 seconds, I can have you all saying all kind of crazy stuff in a video, right? Just like that. All right. And so when we look at, sort of like, the market, the structure of how we, run our government and the point of, hey, we want to make sure that, the things we do are for the greater good, right? That's important because if we behave in a sense of just what's in it for me or what's good for me, we probably would have blown up the country or the world a long time ago. Okay? When you're president, when you're a leader, when you're responsible for other people, you have to look outside yourself. You have to think about, yes, am I upset, or let's just say, for instance, everybody familiar with the Cuban Missile Crisis? Kennedy, Bay of Pigs, that kind of thing, right? Okay. Kennedy had the sole decision-making power on whether or not we were going to throw missiles at Cuba, at the Russians. And his decision, I forgot somebody talking to him, his decision not to do that saved the world from nuclear war. Because Russia was ready with their weapons. And the report was that Russia was not ready, that they didn't have their nuclear heads ready, that they weren't positioned, they just didn't have them in place. And so we'd have time to strike, right? And basically get ready for anything that they came back with. But they were ready. And it's just the fact that Kennedy thought about the greater good. Like, what is this gonna serve? Like, I want this particular piece of land in Cuba, right? But is it really that important for me to send a missile over to, basically destroy a country? And then in turn, not necessarily realizing what the consequences will be, because I don't know what the Russians will do. And the Russians, to their credit, well, not to their credit, just to who they are, they're crazy. Okay? They were ready to hit the switch on hit the nuclear bomb, right? And it would destroy half the world. Just like that.
I mean, it's been known that they've even said it, where they have a system in place where if they get nuked, it automatically launches all of theirs all over the world.
All over the world.
They've done it indiscriminately, just everywhere.
Yep, it just goes, right? Yep, exactly, right? So nuclear talks and nuclear, proliferation really is about, okay, the consequences and what's going to be good for the greater population, right, of our world. Are we so wrapped up in our own individual pursuits that we're willing to sacrifice the world, right? Because at the end of the day, the way you think about it is like, I'm gonna be dead. What do I care, right? But what about your daughters? What about your granddaughter? What about your grandson? What about your mother? What about that person's aunt or cousin, right? That's who you gotta think about, not yourself. Because again, it's a very abstract thought, right? We dead, and nobody really knows what happens when we die, right? We could very well be very conscious for all we know, right? But right now we don't think we are, right? We think we die, soul goes, wherever it goes, and that's just the way it is, right? But it all goes back to deciding, okay, how do we, deal with the consequences when we're thinking about the greater good, all right? The dispute between the market and administrative versions and utilitarian characterize many disputes in business ethics. Egoism is a consequentialist theory that focuses exclusively on the happiness of the individual making the decision. All right. This is specifically goes back to Kennedy, Putin, Kim Jong-un, any dictator you can think of, right? And even Trump, right? Trump suffers from egoism. Ethnocentrism, right? Ethnocentrism is the belief that your ethnicity is superior, right? So he suffers from that, right? A lot of people do. And that's why a lot of people are okay with being self-destructive, right? So people go, man, I don't care. I'll kill all of you. I don't care. Don't matter to me, right? Just like the young man last week, right? 14-year-old shoots 2 teachers and 2 students. When you look at that kid, his soul is dead. There's nothing there. He's got he looks blank. He doesn't care. He's not worried about the consequences of his action and them affecting the greater good. He's about how he's feeling and how he wants to have retribution for whatever wrong he thinks he was done. Or he just, is fascinated by, hey, I wonder how it feels to kill somebody, right? And not being able to control that particular drive, that particular desire, right? Which is a lot of, serial killers and people like that, serial rapists, serial anything, right? It's that impulse that they can't control, right? They have this ego. They have this thing that's calling them. That's just like, I cannot control this craving, right? We've all felt this craving, right? Man, I really would like a hamburger today. I want a hamburger. I want Chinese. I want this particular thing to eat, right? And if we don't get it, we're fine. We make it to the next day. But those are normal type of cravings, right? Or impulses. It's not like killing someone, right? Just for the sake of I want to see how it feels, right? And so egoism is a big deal and plays a huge role in a lot of these things, right? Times it. All right. Totalitarian ethics, problems concerning the need to count, measure, compare, and quantify consequences, excuse me. Utilitarians determine both ethical and unethical aspect of consequence, so the ends justify the means, all right? And in the end, if you are, you practice utilitarianism, it's all about, hey, is this gonna help the majority of the people that I care about or in the world or whatever the case may be? I don't mind being a martyr. I don't mind taking certain actions if I feel like it's going to benefit the greater good, if it's going to save people's lives, or it's going to do something that I want to do, but in large numbers, right? And that's the key, is the large numbers thing. Am I saving people by killing, the whole concept of Jesus, right? I believe in Jesus, right? But the whole concept of Jesus is that Jesus died for our sins. One person died for the greater good of our world, right? That's utilitarianism, right? In a nutshell, okay? It's okay to let that one go because everyone else will benefit at the end of the day. All right, let's take 5 minutes and then come on back. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just think differently. Cause like, if you go to my small town in Tennessee, like the
Yeah.
last time I brought Heather out there, like they were looking her up and down, like,
I remember you told me that, yeah.
you could tell it's like, what is this white guy doing with her?
Right. And why do you bring her here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, different pockets of our nation, they just shut off and they really believe like we're losing our society, we're losing our
But
culture.
in their sense, it's like you said, like, whenever they think they're losing their society, they think they're losing the whiteness of it.
Right.
Cause then if you say like, oh yeah, there's all this crime in Chicago, they're like why?
Right. Yeah. It's
That's
not,
the first thing.
yeah.
You know,
And unfortunately, it's not that simple, man. On the surface, it looks like that's a simple answer.
but it's so much more
It's
complicated.
much more complicated and it goes back 400, 500, 600 years. It's generational mindset. You pass that mindset on, just like the way they think that what they think is natural to them.
Yeah.
But they don't understand it. It's a generational mindset that they're manifesting, that they're projecting. It's generational. Someone taught you that.
What do they call it? Colonialism?
Yeah.
It's deep
It's deep,
inside.
yeah, it's deep inside of you, right?
You want to go steal a car from someone, you know?
Right, exactly, right? It's taught. It's the same way with black folks. It's taught in generational to the point where we were slaves, we got free, we didn't get a chance to do anything. The only thing we could do was rob and steal, and then that's what we taught our kids. Hey, you want to get ahead in life? You need to rob and steal. You want to get in life? Be in the gang. You guys together, you can all rob and steal.
That's the thing too, like my wife and I talk about it a lot is like with Native Americans, I mean, they have all these different things, all these programs, free schooling and all that.
Mhm.
And it makes you wonder, it's like, why don't you see these like Warren Buffett's of Native American people.
Right.
And it's just like, why are they not taking advantage of the programs? And then when you think about it, all the Native Americans on the lands is mostly like drug addicts and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
So,
Alcohol,
yeah, so it's like.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
but you gotta think about, when you do think about that in the reservations, right?
Mhm.
Where they get the drugs from?
Yeah.
Where they get the alcohol from? They purposely,
Keep
well
them down,
documented,
keep them down.
they gave it to them. Because they know what it does. It feels good, but they know the consequences. At the end of the day, we're gonna exterminate you in a certain way, right? Where it seems like we didn't do it, but we did, right?
The cold back in the day.
With the cold,
Yeah.
with, syphilis, with the Tuskegee Airmen,
Yeah.
with crack cocaine, in the black community, with whatever, with Ebola in Africa, and like
Now it's fentanyl.
fentanyl, yeah, opiates, like all this stuff is all generated by people that are trying to, in Israel and Netanyahu, it's just, they do things because they think that they're losing something.
Yeah.
And it's a tough fight, and you're never going to really eradicate that.
And that's the thing, like I was saying earlier, each side, they fully believe in their ethics.
Mhm.
In the divide in the United States. I don't think that divide is ever gonna lessen. I think it's gonna get more. I think it's gonna get more extreme. After this election, like, I don't know who would be the Republican running next election. Hopefully
Yeah.
not DeSantis.
No,
But
that
even Republicans don't like him.
DeSantis is
He's what do they call it? Neo something?
he's just a dummy.
Yeah.
He's not I don't he's just not, he got it.
There's not a lot of good picks for the Republican side.
No, not at all. And not necessarily Republicans that feel the same way that Donald Trump does, or how a majority of society feels. And that's the thing, is that the people that feel the same way Donald Trump do, they're not a big group. They're actually a small group, but they speak very loudly, right? And they have a lot of influence. They have a lot of money.
But it's the same thing with like the Democrat group.
Yeah.
Like the liberals,
Hmm.
not Democrats, liberals.
Right.
They speak real loud online.
Right. Exactly.
You
And they
know?
have money too.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just
yeah.
it's just funny. Like, I just stay out of it most of the time.
Yeah. It's nothing like. I think, and I see why countries do conscription,
Yeah.
because I think once you serve in the military, or do something that,
It changes it.
yeah,
You think more societal. You
Yeah.
stop thinking individual and
Right.
like
not even,
like national. And you start thinking more like societal.
society, right? It doesn't have to be military. It could be Peace Corps, something else that's bigger than you. That where you're actually serving others, right? With nothing expected in return.
Yeah.
All right. There's no reciprocal benefit.
Full college, free college.
Well, I mean, that's one thing, right? But again, not everybody takes advantage of that, right? And some people, they don't care about that, right? And so in saying that, till people get a dose of that, they will never, it's never gonna go away, because they're just gonna get stuck in their own ways, and it's on both sides,
Yeah.
black, white, I don't care. It's the same. I know a lot of prejudice, racist black people, and it's probably the worst sometimes, and then internally within the black community, we have our own racism and prejudice, dark skin, light skin. It's just ridiculous, right?
The
It's
funny
just
part
dumb.
is like I'm 32. I've never voted. I'm not even registered.
You never voted?
I've not even registered.
Really?
Yeah.
You voting this time, huh? No. It's tough. I mean,
I've never believed that the popular vote matters, so I've always just stayed out of it.
yeah, it's unfortunate because, and the way the system is set up, it should be the most important thing, but it's not. This electoral college is nonsense to me. It's not nonsense, but at the end of the day, the people's will is what's more important, not what this delegate thinks. All right? You took this delegate to a steak dinner, not at your buddy. Like, I don't think so.
All right.
All right, Nathan. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. All right. There's one more quick video I want you guys to watch here. All right, this is that what I just showed you as a classic um scenario that occurs that they've been using for a long time. And so that, again, it goes back utilitarianism as far as to where it go? It goes back to utilitarianism as far as like, okay, what outcome is going to benefit the greater good? And is that always the right decision to make? Not necessarily true, but again, um, deciding which way we're going to do it, and if the results are worth the sacrifice, right? As far as, the person dying and we save 5 people, but it's, who are we to decide that this person should die, right? Is their life not as valuable as the other 5 people, right? Just because, we're gonna save more numbers, what if it's one good person and 5 criminals, right? Is that still a good decision that we made? Right? So you got to kind of think about those things when you think about utilitarianism and whether or not, we really are operating in the benefit or for the greater good. Mhm. I can just get my thing to work. No, go back there. No, okay. Okay, so challenge to utilitarian. Pardon me. So challenge to utilitarian ethics, right? We use the ethical decision by requiring that we consider the actions of our consequences of our action. Remember that utilitarian reason not exhaustive a range of ethical concerns. Responsible ethical decision making also involve duties, principles, and personal integrity. Principles are those ethical rules that we put what we value into action, right? Everybody has their principles and morals, okay? And those are very much relative to who you are, where you came from, what your experiences are, right? And what it is that you are ultimately seeking, right? And so what I mean by that is that there are, decision points in life that you make that are a pattern that demonstrate who you are. So for instance, let's take everybody familiar with Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah.
The Matrix, right? John Wick, right? And so he's in, A-list Hollywood dude like everybody else, right? But he's also like one of the most benevolent, giving type people you'll ever meet, right? But you would think, because of his stature, that he'd be more like some of the other Hollywood guys or gals, all right? Not necessarily giving in that certain way, but in his mind, right, he's more concerned about society and everybody being in a good space, vice his own tangible or material happiness, right? And so that plays a role in how he decides to do things, whether he's going to give away $1 million or not, because in his mind, I'm trying to increase the benefit or increase the happiness in the world, as compared to somebody else who had the same resources he does, but they're more concerned about, hey, for me, my principles are, I got to get mine, I got to keep mine, and if you didn't work for it, I'm not giving it to you for free. Okay? And so, again, these principles there, right? Ethical that we put down what we value into action, right? He values the fact that he wants people to be happy. He values the fact that he wants people not to be on the streets, right? He values people, safety and sanctity and sanity, right? And so he does actions, right? But that's all based on his principles, okay? His principles can't be compromised. And because his goal, his end state, is to be worried about the benefit of others, the benefit of the greater good, all right? When your principles and your values can be compromised or bought and sold, that's why they say it's easy when you know someone is money hungry or power hungry, they're very easy to manipulate. They're very easy to control because you know exactly what they want. They're not doing it for anything just self gratification. Okay, they want to be rich, they want to be famous and be popular, and you need some of that, right, in life, right? You have to have self-interest, right? But the self-interest can't be an overriding factor in which it's by any means necessary. It's by stepping on other folks, right, to the detriment of others, right? It can't be that, right? But it is in some instances, right? Some decisions should be matter of principle, not consequence. The end does not always justify the means, all right? Principles create ethical duties that bind us to act or decide in a certain way, right? One approach to ethics that emphasizes duties, obligation, and principles is referred to as deontology, right? And this deontology is what, kind of drives or guides managers, principals, educators, doctors, right? This obligation that we have, although we may think differently, we have an obligation that emphasizes duties and principles, right? The military, okay? When we go and deploy and we go into combat, right? We are fighting against someone who's thinking differently, right? And we're not really sure if they're right or wrong, right? Especially in the military. But we're going out of a sense of obligation and duty, right? Because we said we would do whatever the president said we would do, with the understanding that the president is also making decisions in the most ethical and most beneficial way for the United States. Okay? And so based on that premise, it doesn't matter what the other side is thinking, right? Whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter, right? Because I'm basing my decision making on the fact that I have a duty and obligation, right? I may very well kill a mother and child, right? But I may not necessarily feel bad about it in the sense of I'm fulfilling my duty and obligation, right? And because of that, I can live with that decision, that the ethical, that compromising of my personal principles, right? Because if I wasn't in my capacity as a military member or as a CEO, whatever the case may be, I probably wouldn't have not done that. I probably would have did something different. I would have talked or like go away, something, right? Like move or whatever the case may be, right? I would have taken some different action. But because of my obligation to duty and my responsibility and my principles, right? I behave in a certain way. Okay. And so sometimes that can be a driving force and to why people make the decisions they make, and you think like, oh, this person is evil. No, they're just not evil. Vietnam veterans were not evil. Gulf War veterans were not evil. The soldiers on either side of come on in. The soldiers on either side, some of them, right? They're not necessarily evil, but they have an obligation, right? A commitment they made to either the Israelis or Hamas, to the Palestinians, right? They said, hey, look, we are going to fight for our rights to be here, for our freedom, right? To be accepted and to have, be recognized as a sovereign state and that kind of thing, right? And so for them, it's different, it's a different mindset. So whatever action they take, they don't see it as being unethical. They don't see it as being wrong because it's taken in the name of duty and obligation, okay? And the principles that align with the obligation that they have. What principles and rules should guide our decisions? Legal rules, organizational rules, role-based rules, and professional rules. Ethical duty should be categorical imperative rather than hypothetical, excuse me. A categorical imperative is an overriding principle of ethics, right? So the things that we look at to, decide, our decisions, right? Legal rules, stuff we've established as a society, the saying legally, this is what you can and cannot do, right? And then within that, everything else is a subset, so, right? Organizational rules, they stem from these legal rules that we have as a society. We have organizational rules. Now within the organization, we may have, a different set of standards, right? So organization A is the mob, the mafia, different set of standards, right? It could be organization, a sports team, different set of standards, different set of rules, right? Role-based rules, right? Gender, are there certain ethical rules for men and women, right? Do women have certain things they can do that ethically, we find acceptable, right? So for instance, two two people, right? One male, one female, both the same age. Let's say they're 22. Okay. 22-year-old male goes out, sleeps with every woman he can find. Okay? 22-year-old female goes out, sleeps with every male she can find. Right? What happens is when we find out that fact, right? Who's gonna get ostracized? Who's gonna get demeaned? Who's gonna get ridiculed? The female, right? Because we have different ethical perspectives for that, right? We have different standards for women from a male perspective of, hey, you're a woman, you shouldn't be out there sleeping with 22 guys. I'm a guy, I can do that, right? But naturally, it's not the same, right? It's exactly the same. There's no real logical, legal reasoning as to why it's different. It's just our society, right, has deemed that for a woman to be considered a woman, a good woman, she has to behave this way. For a man, it doesn't matter, right? But why is that? What do you think it is? What do you think? What do you think about the double standard? How do we justify that? How do we not justify, but where do you think that came from?
You know, the facts of the time mode and also that it's provided.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is part of this,
Mm-hmm.
user, so type of agility, especially can't be upon touch.
Okay.
So you gotta fast forward to the modern world, and you see people outside being illustrious, confident herself,
Mm-hmm.
in her sexual ways. It kind of like goes against that inherent bias we have for what women should be,
Right.
what they are now.
Okay. Yeah, so all that is definitely true, right? We have a certain perception of what a woman should be, right? But it goes back to the fact that males, because of pure physicality, always seen as the dominant, right? If you're dominant, you're in charge, guess what? You get to make up the rules. Okay, plain and simple. Okay, you just do, right? And that's what our society has been. Men make up the rules. They made up the rules from the beginning of time, right? Eve followed Adam, right? Physically, Adam was bigger. Adam could dominate Eve, right? Even, us as males, the smallest male is almost as strong as some big female. You know, yeah, strong as women, right? Physical, right? So because of that, we've been able to make the rules and set the tone and kind of set the parameters for how our society handles the gender issues, right? And so there's an attachment to, kind of the role-based rule, right? Your wife, right? Your mother, your role is this, okay? You should not come out of that box. The minute you come out that box, then I can no longer continue, I can no longer respect you sort of as a mother or a wife. Okay? Professional rules, right? Again, different everywhere, right? Here, United States, we have certain rules, things we can and can't do. Other countries, some of those things are legal. Yeah, okay. Right? We talked about it last week. But yeah, when I was in Jordan, I had to give my guy that got my stuff, my supplies and stuff like that. I gave him a little extra. It wasn't extra money, just stuff. Right? So I can get stuff done because that's how they did things in Jordan. Right? Back then in the United States, I'd be in trouble. Right? They'd been like, don't do that anymore. That's not legal. Okay? All right. Um uh kind of talk about human rights already. Okay, this is important concept. Humans are said to have a fundamental right of autonomy or self-rule, okay? And this is important because it goes back to the doctrine of free will, okay? You can have all the ethics, morals, values placed in front of you, all right? But at the end of the day, it really is your decision, all right? You'll see people end up in these dilemmas where you see it in the movies all the time. They'll be tied up, they got a gun to their head. Tell me what you know or do this particular thing, or I'm gonna shoot you. All right? We all know it doesn't matter which way they go, they're gonna die. Right? It doesn't matter, right? So the decision they make in many instances is to do whatever it is that they're getting threatened for, right? Hey, I need you to stab that person. If you stab them, the thought is that, okay, I'll spare your life, right? But that's not what happens, okay? The person can easily go, I'm not doing that, right? With the understanding that they probably gonna die, right? But it's still their decision. They still have autonomy or self-rule, right? Although the position they're in is a position where they have to figure out, are they going to make a decision that's gonna be preservation, or they're gonna make a decision that's going to be in the benefit of someone else, right? Or the greater good, in a sense, right? And so typically, they'll make a decision that's beneficial for them, right? Self-interest, right? But they had the autonomy or the self-rule. They could have made the decision the other way, but they decided that they were gonna go this way, right? And they still end up dead. Okay, so it doesn't matter in some instances, right? It depends again on who you're dealing with and if people are actually honest to their word. And I know that I'm sure the situation where people have to make a choice and they make the choice and then they end up living and that kind of thing, right? Kind of like if you decide to snitch or not snitch, right? If you go and you tell on your friends, you all did the crime, you tell on your friends, right? You're gonna survive for a little bit maybe, right? But maybe you might die, right? But the decision is still yours, right? There's no sympathy for, oh, you know what, they had a gun to my head, and so I had to do it. You didn't have to do anything, right? There's only one thing we have to do. What's one thing we have to do? What's one thing everybody has to do? No? One thing we all have to do in life.
Be on.
No, we're going too deep. Breathe. That's it. That's the only thing you have to do really is breathe. Breathe. Yeah, breathe. That's it. You wake up in the morning or you go to sleep at night, you're breathing, right? You have to breathe. If you want to live, right? You don't even have to go to the bathroom. You should. You don't have to, right? Your body eventually will take over, right? But you have to breathe. You can live without going to the bathroom for about a week, right? Depending on what it is, right? But you stop breathing for about 10, 15 seconds, see what happens. Okay? You're gonna pass out and you'll be dead. Okay? So again, going back to autonomy, you have the decision, you have a choice, right? It depends on, what it is that you feel is the principle and morals and your ethics, and the situation, of course, right? If it's somebody that, like, I don't care if they shoot Johnny, yeah, he's over there. You gonna let me go? Go get him. Okay? Right? I didn't like him anyway, right? But if it's somebody that's important to you or you value, you gotta think twice about it, right? Human rights and social justice, right? This is a very cloudy and interesting point, right? Because in business, especially, the human rights and social justice is a big deal, right? Because even just being in the class, everything we have on is somewhat of an ethical dilemma. Everything we have on is somewhat of a human rights, social justice issue, right? Because if it's getting made in Cambodia Vietnam, Taiwan, Myanmar, Indonesia, right? And it's getting made by old people, kids, women that are getting 10 cents an hour, or maybe they're not getting paid at all, right? Or they got sweatshops, right? And we know this, right? But we still buy the products, right? Nike got in trouble for running a sweatshop, right? They made their sneakers in, I think it was Taiwan or Cambodia. Sweatshop, they were paying the people 10 cents an hour or something like that. Okay? Kids, pregnant women, everybody. Hot, no work, real working conditions, right? They're making all this stuff and we're buying it $100, $200 sneakers that cost $2 to make, right? All that is our ethical decision making, our principles, right? And saying, you know what? Because it's so far away, and I don't know these people, I kind of push it to the side, right? It's everybody, including myself, right? I got a bunch of Nikes at home. I'm a Nike fanatic, right? I got sneakers all day, right? But when I sit back, I think about it, right? Am I contributing to the social injustice? Am I contributing to the violation of human rights? Am I contributing to human trafficking? All right. Even in the sense that if you go out and you meet somebody, right, or you meet people, or you go to certain countries and there's ladies everywhere, right? And they're working, like in Thailand per se, or other countries, Brazil, whatever the case may be, right? They're working in an adult industry, right? Yes, they're out there on their own free will, and they're out there because they need to survive, but they're out there because the demand is there, right? I'm not saying you guys, but I'm saying there are people out there that are demanding their services, right? And so that fuels that whole market. That fuels the human trafficking aspect of life, right? We had even, recently Jerry Epstein or Epstein, whatever his name is, right? That's involved in human trafficking, underage minors, right? Coming in to do things, right? With grown men, right? Or boys, whatever the case may be, right? We are part of the whole ethical, moral compass, right? About the decision making and some of the way it evolves, right? We're all part of that, okay? Whether we want to believe it or not, right? We just turn a blind eye because we go back to the thought of autonomy. If she didn't want to be out here, she could go, she could leave. She doesn't need to be out here, right? And so because she is out here, I feel like I'm doing the right thing because I'm supporting her, right? She's working, right? If I didn't support her or give her money to make those shoes or that shirt, somebody else will. Why shouldn't I take the benefit of what she wants to do, right? So I can sleep at night, not really worrying about me, my moral compass and be fine. Because I don't feel like I'm doing anything that's say wrong because the person that's involved is voluntarily on their own made the decision of their own free will to be out here, right? Of their own free will, they chose to have a pimp, or they chose to come work here in this factory, or they chose to do whatever it is, right? Based on their circumstances. How is that my fault? Why should I not go ahead and support them in their endeavors, right? Am I not helping the community by giving them my money, by buying the Nikes? Am I not keeping the economy going? Yes, no, maybe, right? So when you look at social justice and from an organizational standpoint, right, a lot of the companies have to balance that. They have to figure out, okay, are we willing to go to another country, create a sweatshop or take advantage of folks so that we can make a dollar? And most companies are willing to do that. They don't mind. Okay? Because in their mind, it's very abstract. Again, I don't have a connection with the people that are being affected. I really can't see them. It's hard for me to conceptualize that, especially if I'm coming from a place of where I've always had everything I needed. I've always had access to the resources, right? This is where you kind of understand the mindset of, very wealthy people who were born into wealth, and then understand the mindset of poor people who weren't born in anything, right? Neither one knows anything different. I don't know what it feels like to be poor, and I don't know what it feels like to be rich. Okay? And so, if you're asking me to empathize or sympathize with your plight, maybe, but I really can't because I don't understand it, right? I don't know it. I'm not familiar with it, right? And so, because of that, it's abstract. Anything I do that may seem unethical, I'm good with that. Because again, there's no connection there, right? You just don't, like, you are making a decision on your own. Can you get out of poverty, right? Yeah, that's what the people up here think. Think, oh, what? Just go to school, get a job, and you'll be good, right? It's just not that easy, right? Why don't you come down here and be poor, give away all your money, and live in a roach-infested apartment with 6 other people? Oh no, I'm not doing that. All right, it's easy. Just do it. Same thing, usual thing. Just do it. Just go to school, get a job. All right, that's not that simple. All right, so definitely, an issue for business and organizations to think about when it comes down to the ethics and how they operate and how they manage their business. Is their operations harming society? Is it harming other people? Right? And they had a big issue in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s where a lot of these companies like Purdue, a lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of Dow, a lot of these chemical companies, where they would take the chemicals that after they used them, right, put them in barrels, they would bury them in the ground. Vice disposing them in the proper way because it was more expensive. It's cheaper to stick it in the ground. It's just the ground. So what, right? Not realizing they realized that they didn't care that those chemicals eventually are going to corrode that container. It's going to seep into the water table, which is going to go into the drinking water, which is exactly what happened. And now you have a bunch of issues with deformed kids, cancer, all these things, right? Again, making poor ethical decisions by the company on the organizational level, all right? Okay, I think that's all we got for tonight. What time is it? Okay, yeah. So Ellie quiz, next week title justification is due. Okay, so that's next Sunday. All right, so make sure you keep on top of that. I'm gonna put the groups together. So unless I get an email saying, hey, I want to be in a group with such and such, I'm just putting them together. Okay, I'm gonna keep pretty much all the hybrid folks together for the most part, and then keep all the online folks together. Okay, so good. Okay. Yeah, if you want something different, send me an email and I'll see how I can accommodate. All right? All right, gentlemen, I will see you next week. Okay?
Nancy?